After 50 years in law enforcement, Springboro Police Chief Jeff Kruithoff is retiring. Hi, I'm Maureen Russell Hodson, and this is Springboro Here and There. We are here with Chief Kruithoff in the Springboro Police Department. And after 50 years, are you ready for this?
I think so. The jury's still out, I guess, for lack of a better term. It's been a fun month or so since I announced of people saying goodbye. Some people are saying, what are you doing still here? Aren't you gone yet? And so it's just kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster ride emotionally, but it's been nice. It's been a little tiresome. You know, when you get rid of a document in the police department, you have to have approval from the historical commission and stuff to destroy records, and some of this stuff is 20 years old and has no use, so you have to get permission. So I've been slowly going through all that stuff. So
you're taking a walk down memory lane,
and that's resulting in a nice walk down memory lane. A lot of the stories are coming back to mind from my 21 years here in Springboro. So it's been fun.
Well, let's share some of them. As you said, you were here for 21 years,
yes.
But prior to that, you had a whole other career in Michigan for 30 years, right?
Yeah, for 29. Yeah, I started with the Holland Police Department in 1972 as a community service officer, which was a non-sworn position. Most people would classify that as maybe a cadet nowadays. Then I worked for the city of Allegan and then the county sheriff's office after I became sworn, and then I worked undercover in a variety of capacities from 74 to 79, at which point I thought, I've gone to get a bachelor's degree in college to tell everybody I'm a policeman, and I've spent the last 5 years of my life denying to everybody that I'm a policeman. So I started with the Battle Creek Police Department as a patrol officer, and then retired 22 years later as the chief of police and director of police and fire services.
Okay, so for most people, you had a nice career, you retired,
yeah.
But you decided, no, not enough. I'm going to go and take another police chief position and pick up stakes and move to Ohio.
Yeah,
Springboro, Ohio, of all places.
I was constantly getting calls from headhunters after I left Battle Creek. And I was a finalist in Dayton. I was a finalist for the police chief of the United States Supreme Court in Seaside, California. And I got a call from the PAR group. And they said, we've just been retained by the city of Springboro. They're looking for a police chief. And based on our conversations with you, we think that might be kind of what you're looking for. Because Battle Creek was very much like Dayton, and I thought that would just kind of be a continuation of the same, kind of a tough place to be a police chief, a community that's in a lot of conflict, and racial tension constantly in the community. And so I owned a plane for many years, and I flew down to Dayton Wright Brothers and took the courtesy car and drove around and talked to some businessmen and says, yeah, this is a pretty nice community. And here I am 21 years later as the police chief.
So when you first started, what struck you about Springboro? Because I know it's a different community now than it was then. We've really grown.
Well, one of the things that impressed me was when I stopped in to chat with some businessmen, and just kind of, they didn't know who I was. And I just say, hey, do you know anybody in the police department? And they were able to tell me the names of a couple of officers, which told me that the officers were engaged in this community, which as a police chief makes it nice when you have officers that like the community they're working in, they like serving the community they're working in, and their actions are showing that. So that was a big part of it. I liked the little historical downtown. I think a city without a downtown kind of doesn't have a heart, which a lot of suburban communities don't have. They're just an extension of the metro area. And I like the fact that there was a little bit of identity to Springboro that some of the other suburb communities don't have. So, and of course their job is just to get a bunch of candidates assembled for the city to then go through a process with. So I agreed to have my name put into consideration and went through the process and came out on the other side.
So what were your first steps? What did you really want to accomplish when you first started here?
Well, first of all, we had been an accredited police agency, but it was kind of preparing for growth. Springboro was kind of a little bit of the good old boy system back in those days, and so it was just kind of bringing procedures and processes into place to professionalize and become the face of the organization to the community. And I told the officers, I still remember on day one, I said, you know how best to provide police service to this community. I'm not here to tell you how to do that. I'm here to tell the community about the good work that you do. And there were some struggles. Some of the officers didn't make it through that first 5 or 6 years as we set a professional bar a little bit higher, but the staff that the Springboro Police Department has now is just an incredible group of people. I think we're into maybe our 4th labor contract without a grievance. And even though we've had some discipline for officers that have made mistakes, not mistakes of the heart, and so they are a good quality group of people. They work hard. The solvability that the Detective Bureau does on their cases is probably higher than anybody in the metro area. And it's just a great community to work in. The people in Springboro like their police department, and they like their officers. And primarily, we just don't try to say no. If someone comes to us and asks us to perform a service, if it's legal, we'll try to do everything we can to do that. So, yeah.
How do you define the role of a police chief?
Well, a lot of people misunderstand that because they think I'm out writing tickets and can I, they say, can I tell the people that I met the police chief when I get stopped? And I
Sure,
say,
go ahead.
If you tell them that you know the police chief, they'll probably write you 2 tickets instead of 1, because everybody doesn't like the boss. But my job is really to just run the business of the organization, to make sure the bills get paid, to make sure the lights stay on, and work with the other city departments to be a community-oriented government, not a community-oriented police department, and that's my job. I don't interview bad people. I don't interview cases. I'm aware of them all. I get briefed pretty regularly by the operations lieutenant on what's going on. I will lend my opinion sometimes when I feel it's merited, but my job is to just be the bottom of the pyramid to serve them, to make sure they have the tools, the cars, the equipment, the record systems, the computer systems, the databases that they need to do their job well. But there are a lot of people who think, based maybe on TV images, that the chief is out there, guiding investigations and being there in the thick of things, and that's really not the case.
Well, there are a lot of pieces, and you're making sure that everything gets in the right spot.
Yes. And then that's just internally. And then, of course, a police chief has a lot of responsibilities external to the agency in terms of involved in professional associations that help shape state law. And, the 2 laws that just took effect today, Marcy's Law, in terms of empowering victims, comes from the constitutional change voted a couple years ago. And then also the distracted driving, going to require a lot of different practices by the police, and people are going to have to get attuned to what's legal and what's not legal. So you're also involved in a lot of those kinds of activities, and I have been involved. The city's been very gracious in terms of allowing me to have the time to get involved in some of those more professional organizations.
Well, you mentioned about the heart of the community. Mm-hmm. You have a big heart, and you have your heart in a lot of communities, because not only are you the police chief, but you volunteer and serve on many, many other boards and in many other capacities. Share some of that with us.
Well, since 2011, I've been a governor's appointee to the Ohio Organized Crime Investigations Commission as a commissioner, and we are responsible for a lot of the major task forces that are in the state. That's the number and purpose of those task forces is confidential under Ohio Revised Code 177, but we have human trafficking task forces and drug dealing task forces and mortgage fraud task forces and stuff around the state. And then our job is to work with the staff of the Organized Crime Commission to make sure that those task forces are being true to the targets that they have and that they're doing what they said they were going to do. So that's one thing that I do. I was on the Professional Services Committee for the Ohio Chiefs. When a police chief somewhere in the state was having tension with their appointing authority, I would go in and try to mediate that a little bit. Sometimes you get a new mayor who wants to change everything in the police department, or sometimes you get a new police chief who thinks just because he's a police chief, everything's up to him. You have a boss. You're part of an organizational pyramid. You're not at the top of it, so... and just kind of mediate some of those tensions as we go through. And then I also go to a lot of communities that are experiencing a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. I've been to Pittsburgh area twice this year on a police chief that was killed, and then also an officer in an adjacent community was killed. If I wasn't working in my last couple of weeks, I probably would have been responding to the school shooting in Tennessee or the tornadoes in Mississippi this month. But when I do retire, I won't have this conflict anymore. I'll be able to do that a little bit more.
And so when you go there for these sites or for these tragedies, are you providing police expertise? Are you providing care?
Mostly it's just in a peer support role, helping the police, fire, and dispatchers that everything's going to be okay. It's called critical incident stress management. So we're helping them because they've been through a critical incident. They're experiencing post-traumatic stress. It's helped them process that post-traumatic stress so that somewhere down the road, 4, 5, 6 months later, that doesn't turn into post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a psychiatric mental disorder that takes professional psychiatric help to get out of. But there's a lot of science behind that. If you do your debriefings and you allow people just to tell their story, they can work through that post-traumatic stress or through the 5 stages of grief and come out the other side and eventually don't go down that left turn. The natural tendency is when you've gone through a natural disaster is to think that all of my life's just changed. I've just made a sharp left turn in my life and none of my life's going to be the same. The reality is your life's going to be different, but you're still going to like ham and eggs for breakfast in the morning. You're still going to like these kind of movies. You're still going to, the vast majority of your life is still going to be the same, and it's helping them realize that by letting them tell their story. Yeah, I might have to deal with a loss. I might have to deal with lost property. But my life is pretty much still going in the same direction it was before this incident happened. And that's 16 hours of critical incident stress training dovetailed into 30 seconds there. So, but that's what our role is there, is to help them through that.
But being on site, I'm sure you're a calming presence for everyone.
We hope so. Yeah. If I go down there and get, run around like a chicken with my head cut off, then I'm not going to be any good for anybody. Or if I let the tragedy, the incident overwhelm me, then I'm not helping them. So it's not something you can do every week, even though we do, the organization, Billy Graham Ministries, that I'm affiliated with, has chaplains anywhere, any given week around the world. It's not something you can do every week because then you would have compassion fatigue issues yourself. But I do get an opportunity to do it a lot, and that's quite a blessing.
So back here in Springboro, as you've said, I think you're kind of on your farewell tour. Yeah. People really feel attached to you in many different organizations. So what's that like for you to have to say so long to so many people so many times?
I'm not dying. I'm still going to be here.
You are staying in the
area. We did build a home in Florida about 3 years ago to spend some time away, particularly during cold weather months. But we are going to maintain Springboro residency.
Can we share that your wife is also retiring?
My wife is also retiring after 33 years with the school district, and she's actually much better known in town than I am, which has always been kind of a funny joke to us, because most of the time, the police chief, because of press conferences or things in the news, you become pretty well known. But my wife went through the school system here in Springboro, was a 3-sport athlete in high school, and now she's taught there for 34 years. So she's a lot better known in town than I am. So it's kind of been nice when we walk downtown.
Right? Yeah. It's one of those things.
Yeah. So,
and over the course of your career, law enforcement has really changed, or our perception of law enforcement maybe. Yeah. Where do you see that?
This is about the 5th time we've gone through this kind of a crisis, but this one seems to have legs to it. I came into law enforcement in the 70s after the rebellions of the 60s, and it wasn't a very people didn't look upon the job very nice. And then we went through a period of time where it changed and then went back and it changed again. I worry about the occupation, quite frankly. It is a great occupation. It's an honorable occupation. But young people just don't seem to want to be drawn to it because they're going to be criticized. And if you come into this job with the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship, you're going to do okay. You're going to do just fine. And you're going to have a wonderful career with lots of good stories to tell at the end of it.
So what do you say to someone who's maybe thinking, is this the route for me? How does that person help? How do you help that person make that decision?
Well, a lot of people are kind of excited to, they get out of high school, I want to be a policeman, and they want to go through the academy, and I get some life experience first. You're much more marketable in this profession at 25 than you are at 21, because you're more mature, you've seen more of life, you may be married, you might have kids, you're a little bit more stable. Those are all important things, and so I tell them to just be patient and make sure it's something you want to do. But if you decide to do it, if you like helping people and help them solve problems that they can't solve themselves, then it's a good occupation to get into.
Looking over your time here in Springboro, any special memories stand out for you?
I look at some of the cases that the detective bureaus have solved, and from cleaning guy swallowed a ring, and so the detective brought him next door to Sure Care, and they took an X-ray, and sure enough, the ring was
right?
in his stomach. And they've just worked hard. We've been fortunate enough to stay out of the news. We're not real proactive in dealing with the news because I just never saw the need for that. Cincinnati and Dayton take enough of the oxygen out of the news on police stuff, and they are welcome to it. But there's a lot of really good work done here every day by the staff, and in both helping people and in solving cases where someone in the community has been victimized.
Dan Bentley has been named as new chief.
Yes, that's exciting.
So any advice for him, or how do you see?
He's more than ready to take charge. I was so glad that the council has done that. He has a former Special Forces background. He has a very quiet leadership style about him. He has been the right hand, my right hand in the agency for a number of years. The officers like working for him. He's very, very smart when it comes to the subtleties of the Ohio Revised Code and how to process cases and investigate cases. So I'm real excited for the city as a resident here that he's going to be at the helm.
Now, I know this is not a secret because you talk about it all the time, but you think the best decision you've ever made is bringing a little four-legged character.
Bringing in Comfort Dog Blue.
Yeah.
I do believe that is the best decision I made in the 28 or 29 years that I was a police chief. Yes. Yeah, that was a good decision. It was about a year in the making, and the community support we've had, first of all, from the breeders, from Golden Spirit Goldens, the breeder, in donating Blue to the agency, to Homeland Canine, donating the training, to Springboro Veterinarian, to donating the veterinary care. He is pretty popular around town, as you can tell, and he has developed into just a perfect personality to just be a comforting presence for people when they're having a bad day. And of course, we went through the pandemic with him here, and just having him love on everybody when they're just getting a lot of, ugliness is going on out there in the world. He's been quite the presence. So he's very laid back now. He lives here in the police department. He has some people that come in pretty routinely to see him, and that's nice.
So it was a great decision. Good decision on your part.
I hope so.
Yes.
Yeah, he's pretty popular. I don't know if I want to tell the mayor he's more popular than the mayor, but
no, I don't know. I would agree with you on that. Any message for the community? Anything you want the community to know about you, your service time here, going forward?
First of all, I appreciate the support that they've given us as the agency. I'm just merely the face of the organization. As I used a reference from Martin Luther King. I've been just the drum major in this orchestra that has provided police service here for the last 21 years, and they've done it with honor, they've done it with integrity, and I believe that's going to continue under Dan Bentley, and I'm happy for the community. They can rest assured that's going to continue that way. And one thing that my peers have never enjoyed is those empty council meetings every other Thursday, because I think people are happy with the service that they're getting.
Yeah.
And when that starts to fill up every week with people who aren't being served, then we got some problems. But my peers, they go and their council meetings go on for 2-3 hours, and they have a lot of changeover in the administration and on the council and in the mayor's seat and all that. This has just been this is a community that from the top on down just wants to serve the residents here. When you turn your water faucet on, the water flows, you have nice parks to go to, and your streets are maintained, and we enjoy being part of that city philosophy, and the employees in the entire city is like a big family, and that's been a real pleasure.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of our community and our
Thank
city,
you.
I thank you for all
Thank
that
you.
you've brought to the city, for your calm demeanor, for your outstanding leadership, and just for being a super nice guy.
Thanks. Thanks.
For more information, you can always visit our website, ci.springboro.oh.us. Wish you all the best, and we will see you next time.